And we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel. Welcome to the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 260. As you guys are logging in, if you'd be kind enough to say where you're logging in from, this is Dwight Woods. Hit the like button and feel free to continue doing so throughout the dialogue. If you're catching the simulcast over on the YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell as well. As you can see, because we set the cameras up already, I have two dialogue partners today. I'm not sure on my right, maybe screen left, I'm not sure. You guys should recognize that face. This is the notorious Joseph Powell, who who is making his I think it's your third appearance on the dialogues, if I'm not sure. And for those of you who so Joseph, why don't you go ahead and give us the 30-second thumbnail introduction of yourself, and then we'll go to Maestro Martinez.
Okay, my name is Joseph Powell. I've been involved in the martial art and the study of JKD in particular for 40 years, tracing down the Tao of Jeet Kune, and trained out there with Dan Innocento, Richard Bastillo, and I'm a professional boxing trainer, professional and amateur boxing trainer, and plus I do the martial arts as well, Filipino martial arts and JKD.
Okay, so for those of you who may not be aware, Joseph and I met back in probably 1987 or 1988 or something, and he was the first person who made me very aware that most of the stuff in the Tao of Jeet Kune was not Bruce Lee's original stuff. And so Joseph was the first person, that's what, 34 years ago, who had embarked on a search for the origin sources of the Tao of Jeet Kune. Now, a couple of weeks ago, I get a message from him. He goes, "Oh, you'll never get, I'm with Maestro Ramon Martinez at a fencing seminar, and he's showing me all this stuff. You got to get him on the program." Yeah. I'm a smart guy. I listen to what Joseph Powell says, and so it's my great pleasure to welcome Maestro Ramon Martinez to the Jeet Kune Dialogues. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
My immense pleasure. You know, if you go even my friend Mick Tully just said something about if you go to Chat GPT, you know, the new artificial intelligence that everybody's talking about. If you ask it about Jeet Kune, it's gonna tell you about Wing Chun and boxing and fencing. Mm-hmm. So even artificial intelligence, right, brings that up. So Maestro, if you would give us again the 30-second thumbnail of who you are, and then we'll get cracking with the 30 questions that Joseph Powell submitted.
You can change it, man.
I'll try to do the best I can. But my name is Ramon Martinez. I've been a master of arms for 30 years, no more, over 25 years. And I've been a swordsman for almost 50. I started when I was 18. I'm 69, going on 70 right now. So it's been a long time. I'm from the South Bronx, the Fort Apache, Hunts Point area, probably the worst area in New York City. I grew up there. I used to have to step over junkies just to get into my house. Right, it was a very bad area, very violent. Very dangerous area, but I worked my way out of there, went to college, got my degree. And to make a long story short, you know, I did a lot of different jobs, and I became a fencing master full time. Originally, I started out to be an actor, and fencing was part of it. And fencing became to dominate my whole life. You know, although I still did a few acting jobs on the side, but it became my whole dominant thing. I first got interested in it because as a kid, I grew up watching Zorro on television with Guy Williams, this old Disney series. And it turns out that Guy Williams was from the Bronx like me, except he was from more north, the northern part of the Bronx. And his real name was Joseph Catalano. So I was watching him as a kid. And I said, you know, I can do this. And I'm saying to myself, one day I'm going to do it better than you. And it happened.
Yeah, because he never became a master swordsman, did he?
No, he was a master actor, though.
Right. Yeah. All right. So obviously, for those of you who are watching, the connection then between the three of us here is Jeet Kune and fencing and what have you. But before we start delving into that, Maestro, I read your website. Um, I did, it's fascinating. So you just said the fencing full time in New York. How is that a possibility?
Oh, I tell you, I'm one of New York's best kept secret, but it's right in the open.
Okay.
I'm very easy to find, but yeah, I've been now, I within the last month or so, I've been getting a lot of students coming in, uh, which is surprising to me because it was low key and it's extremely difficult to make a living doing this. I've taught fencing not only in the New York area, but I've been around the world. I've been to Canada, I've been to Mexico, I've been to Scotland, England, Italy, Sicily, Australia. As teaching this stuff,
Mhm.
and I've been around for a while, and I was in demand, and now things got started to calm down, but now it's starting to pick up again. It's interesting because my students come from all walks of life. I've had doctors, lawyers, Golden Gloves boxers, actors, other martial artists from different. I had one of the guys from the New York Jiu-Jitsu Society coming in,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And I think I'm very lucky because I get to meet all kinds of really nice people. And very 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 smart people in my work. And that's the way it's been so far. You know.
Is it does the what do they call it, historical European martial arts, that movement, because that movement has been, it appears to me that it has been growing stronger. Is that partly responsible then for the interest?
I don't know because that's not my world because I don't because that's all based on reconstruction from the ancient treatises.
Okay.
And I'll have a few. If you remind me to speak about, I'll have a few words to say about that later. But
Okay.
that is a modern evolution, and it's interesting because it has become a modern combat sport, even though it is like based on the historical sources.
Hmm.
You know, it has become it has evolved and continues to evolve. From
Yeah.
what I've seen. And from what I've seen, it evolves to an actual study of the treatises, but now it's become a combat sport. And you know what happens to a martial art when it becomes a combat sport? I'm not gonna say another word.
Yeah. Well, okay. But
I'm not part of that, obviously.
right, yeah. But the world of fencing in and of itself
Hmm.
is fascinating. Just from the little bit that I looked at in preparation for having this conversation with you. But Joseph, you as a Jeet Kune historian, you're somebody who would have come across the whole fencing influence. So tell us about, because I know you're fascinated by fencing as well. So tell us a little bit about because I'm new to the game. Your fascination with the art of fencing as a JKD guy.
From what I saw of it, and that what Bruce was talking about in his book, it's like two different things, and that's what I saw. It didn't match up. I seen the sport, but what I read in his Tao and research and found the books is not quite the same, and that's what I saw. And so I had to find out. I just had to find out. So I started looking for classical historical fencing, and lo and behold, it answered all my questions right there.
So, well, then that tail ends perfectly to what Maestro just said about when it becomes a combat sport,
Right.
right?
Then
But now, okay, but Bruce Lee is not known as being a classicalist,
right.
right?
He's not known for that, but his writings tell me something else.
So,
Right.
so is that aspect as well kept a secret as you are in New York? Maestro.
think it's a secret that's been in everybody's face for decades and nobody sees it. Look, I'll give you for instance. I have the Dao Jeet Kune Do right here.
Mm-hmm.
You see, it's all marked up. I tell all my students to read this, but in the beginning of the book, this is Linda Lee talking, and she says here, Bruce's personal study notes reveal that he was particularly impressed by the writings of Edwin L. Hassett, Julio Martinez Castillo, fencing master, Hugo and James Castillo, his two sons who were fencing master, Roger Cronier, who was another fencing master.
Right.
These are all of that classical era. And he also quotes in the other part of his book, he quotes a fencing master, an Italian fencing from the 17th century. His name is Marcelli. So he was well aware of what's going on. And if you just look at
There we go.
this one here,
Yeah.
I'm going to say it because it's right here for everybody to see. There you go. Joseph's got it. But I'll tell you something about those books because I was friends with Hugo. Over here, he has, in his table of contents, I'm going to just read you off the fencing parts that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from the section that says preparations on page 124, he has feints, parries, manipulations, mobility, distance, footwork, evasiveness, attacks on the preparation, simple attack, compounded attack, counterattack, riposte, renewed attack, tactics, and 5 ways to attack. That's all fencing. It's right there.
Right.
You can't miss it.
Yeah.
The thing is, sometimes, what is the expression in English? You can't see the forest for the trees.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's what happens. The people get so fixated, and from I met Danny Santo years ago, and he actually took some classes from me, some private classes I taught him.
Yeah.
And he said that the Dao Jeet Kune Do was not meant for public for public consumption. That was his personal notes.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote that for himself.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I know about it.
Yeah.
But the book, I tell all my students to read this book because whether or not the section they're reading is about fencing, they're gonna get some benefit out of that. It'll put them in a different mindset to look at things from a different angle, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Joseph, how much? I mean, you just showed us that collage, right, of fencing related Bruce Lee stuff. We don't have any video of him fencing, so to speak, but we do have video of him boxing or hitting the heavy bag, I should say. So is that partially then why we don't hear as much about the fencing aspect of Jeet Kune Do as we do about the boxing and the Wing Chun?
Yeah, because like I said, you can see it in his movies. He was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured my personal opinion, I think he still was practicing it, but he just didn't let that be known to the public.
Well, he went to school at the University of Seattle, was it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, there was a fencing team there.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, he might have been exposed to modern competitive, I call it Olympics fencing, but back in the day, it wasn't as far gone as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Into the sport arena,
Yeah.
And if that movie, The Game of Death, with his when he goes on guard, that's a foil on guard.
Right. Uh-huh.
Right.
And
now
can I say, go ahead. Can I
ahead.
say, Master Martinez,
Mm-hmm.
you said something. You told me something. You saying that the fencing that his brother and him practiced back in that was back in 1958. That's his brother Peter.
Mm-hmm.
Back in that time frame, you said that it was sport fencing, but it wasn't as far gone. There still was that element of the self-defense dueling fencing was still part of it.
Yeah, and I will tell you this, to be more specific, the evidence of the classical stuff was microscopic, but it was still there, depending on who the teacher was.
Uh-huh.
Because all the fencing masters except mine adapted to the modern arena. My fencing master refused. He said,
Okay.
"No, I'm teaching it the old way, the traditional classical way. That's what he's teaching." And they said it wouldn't work in competition. However, it did work, but the people officiating the tournaments didn't know was what they were looking at. So I got a lot of bad press.
How funny is that, right? Because that reminds me of the time when Sifu Inasano entered Tanya Lukai into the Long Beach Internationals, and
Yeah.
she did the trap in hands,
Yeah.
and they didn't know what she was doing, so they disqualified her. Right? Okay. But Maestro Martinez, tell us about your fencing instructor and his philosophy, because I gather then that he was somewhat against the graduation into sport.
Totally.
Mm.
Totally, he was anti that, the complete opposite. To him, just try to say this succinctly, he was of the dueling tradition, not the sport tradition. The dueling tradition, it teaches you how to survive a duel, right?
So those are the clips that Joe sent me.
Yeah, and he said, one of the things he always told me, he says, you don't win a duel, you survive it. Because God forbid, if you kill someone, you're going to have to live with it and the consequences.
Right.
If he kills you, it's over. If you hurt that person or maim him, you're going to have to live with that.
Okay. And so,
but dueling is a very, very serious and very illegal, undertaking.
And your teacher's name? Who was your teacher?
Frederick Rhodes, the man that Joseph's pointing at.
Okay.
The man below that as his master, one of his masters. That's Marcel Cabijos. And by the way, he was an interesting man. He was the champion of the French Navy. And in 1927, at Madison Square Garden, he defeated the United States epee and saber champion using only a 12-inch dagger.
Oh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And the other man, the guy on the bottom, that's Aurelio Greco, right? And a guy above, he's a Sicilian master. And the guy above, that's Luigi Barbasetti, was a master from northern Italy. He studied under both of them.
Okay.
So we have a lineage in French fencing,
right,
southern Italian fencing, and northern Italian fencing.
And are there essential differences between those three?
There are. I don't know if it's essential, but there are subtle differences.
Okay.
Like the French fort is one thing, and the Italian fort is another. Then the weapons even look different. I'll show you those in a little bit, but very, very different. From what I can tell, and from reading Bruce Lee's book, is that he's basing everything on French theory, even though he does quote one Italian master.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Okay. But again, your teacher, his opposition to the sport was because what did he think would be lost?
Oh, the first thing he said was the form goes out the window. And a modern fencer would takes chances. He gambles with something that a duelist would never do. It would be suicidal.
I see.
So the fencing is the traditional classical fencing is much more conservative, because the idea is to fence every touch as if you were fighting for your life. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. Then you become a gamesman. Then what happens? Techniques start to become developed for the gamesmanship, and instead of the reality of martial combat, which is what we're all about.
Right. And the early duelists had no protective gear.
Oh, yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be duelists.
I like how you put that. Yes.
A sharp weapon is something very, very serious, and if you see one, and I always have this joke. I said, if some of these modern fencers, if they faced a weapon that's sharp, they would change their mind faster about things, faster than an atheist in an earthquake. They would think twice about approaching that.
Right. Okay.
And I'm saying these things, and I know it's going to cause some controversy, because every time I open my mouth, something controversial happens. But I have this bad habit of calling it as I see it.
You're in good company if you hang out with JKD people opening their mouths. There's always controversy.
Yeah.
All right. So can we take a look at one of the images that you sent me? This is
let's look at the first one. With Mr. Lee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hang on. Let me get that. Where are we? Okay. Here we go. So
yeah, if you see this is they
okay.
call it
this one first. Okay.
This one, you see, they call it the four corners.
Yeah.
Right. They call it high gate, inside gate, outside. We call them lines: outside line, inside line, low line, low inside, low outside, low high outside, high. It's the same thing because he's protecting those quadrants. If he sees in the middle with his hands like this, that is the center line.
Right.
Now, if you look at the French guy on guard with the foil, how different is that?
But I thought that the high gate outside inside stuff was Wing Chun.
No.
Now,
Now, it could be Wing Chun, but if it is, that's fascinating because it's exactly the same as the French, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph, step in here.
Huh?
Say again?
Joseph, step in here and illuminate my cloudiness. What is it? Is it Wing Chun or is it fencing?
Well, he's going to answer it for you. He told me about. I have it here at the interview, but I let him tell you about center line and central line. There's a difference.
There's a difference.
Ah.
Now, I think that Mr. Lee, in the Wing Chun book, he used that diagram because he was friends with Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee wrote the introduction to that book, so he must have been influenced by Bruce Lee.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bruce Lee was the technical editor, is what they say officially. I've heard it that it was actually Bruce Lee's book, but he gave the writing credit to James Lee because James Lee had health issues at the time, so he turned it into his book so that any money that was made would go to him.
So that makes perfect sense to me. It also clears up a lot of things for me. It makes my explication much more simple. It's the same thing. And we call those the lines, not the gates.
Right.
Now, we also have lines of defense and lines of offense. What this diagram here is showing are the lines of offense. The lines of defense are on the body, right?
Mm-hmm.
I sent you another diagram, which is a chart. If you can go into that, it's like a chart.
The Rada one?
No, the other one.
Let's see. Did I miss one of them?
Maybe.
What?
It was like a square, and it had all the different lines and stuff on it.
Okay, let me see. Let me go to the email. So while I search for that, if you guys could talk about center line and central line, then.
Okay.
Because Joseph, you know, the only person I've ever heard talk about central line was William Chung.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He sure did.
Guess who I learned it from?
William Chung.
Wow! I told you, Dwight. I told you.
I met him in New York City, and I was invited to his seminar, and he was talking about in Bilgi. The form that he says you use your fingers like a foil. I said, I'm a fencing master. He goes, you don't pay. You're my guest.
Oh man.
So I sat there through the whole thing. I'm just watching because I didn't know anything about Wing Chun. I mean, I've only what I read, so I got to try it a little bit. I started to like it, and then I looked into Wing Chun for a while. There was a master in New York. His name was Moyat.
Yes.
I met him, and I had I had another Sifu. His name was, I can't remember his first name. His name was Chu. He was a young guy. And then I had my other Sifu was a retired housing cop, who was a student of William Chung, and I knew nothing about sparring. I got to tell you, he threw me into the water. He said, "Spar." I said, "I don't know what I'm doing." He said, "Yeah, you do." He says, "Use your rapier and dagger technique." So I got him, and I started using my hands as if they were sword and dagger.
Yeah.
And then he only wanted to spar with me, so I get beaten up all the time. And I kept saying to him, "Why do you want to fence? Why do you want to spar with me?" He says, "Because your hands are better than most of the Wing Chun people in New York.
Yeah.
So I can put you against any of them right now. I'm sure you'll win." I said, "Well, I don't know about that," but
wow,
that's what he said.
Can I say something that that Master, Maestro Martinez told me? He said that one of the guys told him that his sensitivity hands were more sensitive than the Wing Chun people. And Maestro Martinez told me it was from the
that's what this last Sifu that I had was. That's why he said my hands were better than most people. because of the sensitivity that I've developed from the fencing. Because
From the blade.
you know that's one of the biggest things in fencing, which has been lost with the modern sport, by the way. It's what they call in I'll translate it into English. It's called sensitivity of the blade. In French, you say sentimento di ferro. In Italian, you say tacto di ferro, right? And in Spanish, you say tacto, which that's that tactile sense. When you cross blades, it becomes a conversation, because you start to feel your way through that person, and depending on how good his defense is and how good your offense is, that's what it's on. Because he said, let's who's more sensitive, who's more educated, who's more artistic,
Right.
who's more daring.
Right.
But that all comes from that sense of touch.
But that's incredible to me, that you develop hand sensitivity through weapon sensitivity, right? Because you know, Joseph, if you're a JKD guy for whom hand sensitivity is important, but you train in weaponry, you know, some people frown on that because, yeah, they do, right? Right? But many years ago, listen to this. I'm not making this up.
Okay.
In Stick and Dagger, in going through some of what we call the tie-ups in Stick and Dagger,
Yeah.
it occurred to me that Stick and Dagger helps with trapping.
Of course it does.
And I thought that just on my own.
Yeah, of course. I've done it. Not knowing it, but I've done it.
Yeah.
You know,
And can I say something too?
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Maestro Martinez. Go ahead.
One of my students has become a Wing Chun instructor under the Fang lineage. So he's a fencing master and the teacher of Wing Chun.
Okay.
And he keeps talking about, you know, that we touched hands a couple of times, and I said to him, man, if I was if I lived near you, I'd be your student. He goes, no, Maestro, don't say that. It's true, you know. It's a very sensitive thing, you know. But the one thing I gotta say, that I did study Tai Chi Chuan for 5 years at the New York Tai Chi Chuan Center under C.K. Chu. And the funny thing about it, I learned push hands, and I was already Tai Chi boxing with the advanced students, and they were very reluctant to touch hands with me. They couldn't get through my defense, and I would easily get through their off. You know, I would go right through their defense.
That's incredible.
And can I say something? Sifu Dan spoke about that. That you learn weaponry and get that sensitivity from the weapons. I was in class one time. He spoke about that in class, about learning, you know, getting the sensitivity through weaponry. And that he said that a lot of empty hand arts comes from weapons. That's what he told in class.
You know, when he was visiting here in this area, he hired me and my wife to teach him, and we were teaching at the Princeton Martial Arts Center that was run by a guy named Tucci.
Rick Tucci, yeah.
Rick Tucci, that's right. And he had me teach him Italian rapier and dagger, and Spanish rapier and dagger. And that man learns very fast. And I remember when I'm sitting in a chair like I am now, he sat at my feet. I said, Dan, this is not right. You should be sitting in the chair. I should be sitting up. He goes, no. He said, no, you're the Sifu here today, not me. I said, you leave me here on the floor. I said, okay. You know?
Yeah. Okay, I found a diagram. So this is that's the one.
That explains to you exactly. Let me see if I can see it better. It tells you what the lines are, right?
Okay.
And this is showing center line. These are the lines of what I call the lines of, because there's two lines. There's the lines of defense and the lines of offense. The lines of offense is the one you just saw in the French diagram with the fencing master there. This is the lines of defense. The other ones, I can't see this anymore. But anyway, it also explains to you what a parry is, which is another important aspect of Jeet Kune Do. There's no blocks. There are parries, not blocks.
Right.
Right. So this is I think the diagram is self-explanatory. But anyway,
that's hilarious, because here it says in the first instance it is called a parry, in the second an opposition.
Yeah.
Opposition.
Right. which is the term used by whom in French kickboxing? Salem Asli.
Actually, yeah, Celine.
It's all tied together.
Yeah, you see it. Yeah.
You know, but what I wanted to say, something that's very clear, is that Bruce Lee didn't just grab all of fencing in total. No, what he introduced to JKD was his comprehension of the fencing. He didn't just take it and lose, this is mine. No, he never said that.
Right.
But he incorporated that. And if anybody's a good fighter, I'll tell you what Dan said. Gurino Santo. He says, you will never become a great martial arts. And he said this in front of the students and in front of me. He says, you will never become a complete martial artist until you learn how to fence.
Wow.
Wow.
And he told him to come to my school.
Wow.
Which is basically around the corner from where he was.
Uh-huh.
Right? But they didn't come. And I said, I didn't think they would, but
yeah, well, it's what you just said there, Maestro, about Bruce Lee's comprehension. See, if those guys had gone around the corner to your school, that would have aided in their comprehension of
without a doubt
of what they were focusing on.
Yeah.
You see, but it's kind of like, but see, Bruce Lee was willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Right. As his followers, we should also be willing to do the work rather than being interested in receiving the benefit of somebody else's industriousness.
Yeah, his book should be an inspiration for you to do the work.
Yeah.
And you have to complete the work, because what he did, from my understanding and speaking to people, is that when he got into a certain martial art that he was studying, developing his way, he went into it all the way, and he didn't hold nothing back. He gave it everything, and he learned as much as possible, right? Because I understand he was traveling a lot, but he didn't just dabble at it. He went for it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people today are not willing to put that in. I think in Spanish sometimes. But give me a break. They were not willing to put that intensiveness into their work. He was.
Yeah.
Guru Inosanto was.
Yeah.
Right. And other guys that he trained, that he had trained. I don't know them all. I just met Dan. I don't know any of the other ones. But William Chung, I knew him. But he's another guy. But William Chung is very familiar with fencing. To learn for you, he knows it. Right.
Yeah.
And so anyway, that's the thing. To do, you have to take any martial art that you study. This is my opinion. You have to take it to the point where you can make it your own.
Okay.
One of the last things my fencing master told me before he passed away, he says, "I have taught you everything there is to know. You're a master now." He says, "And if anybody has a problem with it, let them come and see me about it." I said, "Okay." And he says, "You have to take it and make it your own now, and add to it."
Wow.
Add something to it. And when I trained my students to become masters, you see them on that picture above my head. Those are the 4 masters that I've trained, my wife included, right? They have to bring something to it. Now, and that way, when they bring something to it, that is uniquely their own, but it's still part of the tradition.
Yes.
You see?
Yeah. Ha ha ha.
And can I say something that you told me that Dan told you? Bruce did not just dibble dab in it for 3 months then quit.
Oh no. He was in it all the way. Yeah.
All the way.
Yeah.
Let's take 3 months and okay, I got it and take off.
One of my students he teaches, he's a master, his picture's back there, Maestro Longino. One of his students was this guy was a full contact fighter in Asia before this full contact stuff came. This is way years ago. He learned boxing from Archie Moore, who was the world champion. A heavyweight. This guy was the guy I'm talking about was a heavyweight. He's learning small sword now. Think about that.
Wow.
Small sword.
Yeah.
This guy was like a big hulking guy, you know?
Yeah.
But one of the nicest people you ever meet, you know?
Wow. So Joseph mentioned to me that you teach Bowie knife also.
Yeah, I want on request.
Oh, okay.
He's got pictures of it.
Okay. All right. So there's other weapons then with which in which you're qualified to teach. I have a particular fondness in the Filipino martial arts for the stick and dagger or the sword and dagger. Um, what can you fill in my knowledge of that? Give me a quick course.
Well, why don't you tell me what you know? Tell me what you know first.
Well, see, so this is the thing, right? We were told. I remember Sifu Inasano said that stick and dagger, or what we call long and short, is the backbone of Filipino Kali. He said that if you understand long and short, you will understand all the other areas of training.
That's absolutely true. That's absolutely true.
Including the empty hands, he said.
Including the empty hands. I was asked one time to come to the Saratoga Martial Arts Festival up in upstate New York. Me and my wife from there said, how would you apply fencing to empty hands? So I took a rapier and dagger on guard. I said, come on. They couldn't get through. He says, can you do what? He said, I started to show them with the dagger and the rapier, and I said, can you do that with yes? Of course I can. And they were shocked. They never invited me back again. But they were shocked.
Right.
And that Joseph showing you that stick system that we teach in my school was created by my wife. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the world. That stick system. Because that stick system is an introduction to the sword.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And I teach French poignard and stuff like that. No, I just mentioned about the buena. If I go back to that second. In the United States, in New Orleans, was the dueling center of the world in the 19th century. There were more duels fought in New Orleans than anywhere else in the world, and really bloody, nasty ones. And a lot of the French masters, they took the French technique and adapted it to the Bowie knife. Right? And the most famous American and Spanish fencing master of that era was a guy named Santiago Yuya, they call him Pepe, right? He taught, he had his own school in New Orleans. In New Orleans, there was a street called Exchange Alley, and that was wall-to-wall fencing school. You name it, they had it. Different masters up and down that school.
My God.
And they used to fight their duels in what is now City Park. It used to be Bayou St. John. That's Sensei Laurier. Got trained with him. He's also one of my best friends. And in New Orleans, there were many people lost their lives to swords, sabers, and knives in that area. You can still visit it today.
Wow. One of the most interesting things for me in New Orleans, on one visit to New Orleans, I noticed that the streets had French and Spanish names. I had never heard about that, and I'm walking.
I can tell you the reason for that.
Yeah, please.
I'll tell you. New Orleans, since the beginning, was a French city, right? In the late 18th century. The Spanish invaded New Orleans and it was led by an Irish commander from the Spanish Navy. His name was Alejandro O'Reilly, right? And he burned it down.
Right.
Burned it down to the ground, except for the Ursuline convent. He wouldn't touch that. Right? And
funny.
Anyway, so the town was built up. People say it looks like France. No, it doesn't. Every stick of architecture in that town is Spanish architecture. So the Spanish held that town for a long time, and that's why you see the double names of the streets. Alejandro O'Reilly, by the way, later on became the governor of Puerto Rico.
He got around.
And his name was They called him Bloody O'Reilly, and the reason was, this is the legend, said that he was when he took over New Orleans, he sent out engraved invitations to the heads of the most prominent French families in the city. And at the end of the meal, he goes, "Thank you guys for coming. Thank you very much for attending." He says, "Is there anything else I can get for you? Did you enjoy your meal?" And they go, "Oh, yes, very much." He goes, "Take them out and have them all shot right now." Then he said, "Now we can get down to business." He was nice to them, but he had them shot.
Right.
that name Bloody O'Reilly stuck with him. He was a mean customer.
Yeah. Okay, so what Joseph had also asked a question about in the empty hands. Is there kicking also and grappling and that type of stuff?
There is in historical fencing. There's a lot of that stuff, and that goes back to the Middle Ages.
I see.
Right? They learn how to grapple and how to wrestle and stuff with armor. In fact, the oldest known fencing book is a book called Fiore de Libri. I might even have it on my shelf here. Which shows you medieval combat with and without armor with a variety of weapons.
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
And there's also other books written by German masters of the era. So every treatise from the beginning of fencing, that's from Talha for the German one. Yeah, had that aspect because it wasn't all about dueling. It was about Fior de Libre, Fiore de Battaglia means the flower of battle.
Yeah.
And so yes, there were techniques for that. In fact, some of the techniques of grappling were so powerful that in a dueling situation, depending on what century you're talking about, they were forbidden in the duel.
Okay.
The dueling did have rules.
Right. What about Lacan, the stick fighting that's part of the French, the French savate?
Yeah, my knowledge in that is extremely limited, but I know it's connected to fencing. A lot of those guys, they were fencers,
Right.
and and in fact, in Italy, the Lacan became so popular and so effective that till this very day, you can't walk on the street with a cane in Italy without having a note from your doctor saying that you can carry because the techniques are lethal.
Ah.
With that skinny little stick, you can beat somebody to death.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I know one of my students, he was fooling around one day and swinging around a plastic baseball bat, and there two squad cars show up right away. It's in the street in Milan.
Wow.
Yeah, that's cane self-defense. I also teach cane self-defense, not cane fighting, cane self-defense.
Right. Yeah.
Those are all pictures at my school.
Okay.
Well, you're well informed, Joseph.
Hey, he's
on it. He's on it. Yeah.
He's the bomb. He's the bomb.
all about those pictures,
Yeah.
I'm on it.
Okay, but can we stick on the Filipino stuff for a little bit?
Okay.
So what's the influence then? Because I know that in the Filipino martial arts, there are eskrima styles called Italiano, right? But more often than not, the association is with the Spanish more than anything. So what can you tell me about the Spanish and Italian fencing influence on the Filipinos?
Okay, I've heard this. This to me is a myth, right?
Okay.
Because people say, "Oh, we get the espada y daga from the Spanish rapier and dagger," and I said, and I did my research. I have found no archaeological, no sociocultural evidence of that, not one iota. I said, well, we some of the language got into our language. That's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at this logically. Would any conquering nation allow the native populace to learn one of the most lethal martial arts in the world that can be turned against them? I don't think so.
Right.
Right? And even the way they move with the stick, with the short stick and the long stick, it is not the same as rapier because the shape of the weapon is different. I'll show you one. I have one right here. This is a Spanish sword. This is a replica of a 17th century cup hill rapier. Look at the blade. That's a double-edged blade.
Yeah.
With a fuller on each side, and it tapers off to this fine point. We have a button on it because we use it. So that used along with a dagger would be this type of dagger. It's called a shell guard dagger. So you would go on guard with this with your hands completely. In fact, the diagram that I sent you of the Spanish fencers,
right? Yeah,
has that they stand straight up. It has no comparison to the Filipino one.
Hmm.
And and the Italian not either.
Right.
I'm sure they now. I am almost if you see that's me and my wife demonstrating that. And if you look at the one of the diagrams the pictures that I sent you, you can see that's from a treatise from 1705. If we can look at that'll be good because it tells you the angles and everything.
There.
I think you showed it that one.
Yeah. That's
from 1705 from a treatise that was written by this guy named Maestro. and you can see the way they stand, like straight up. That you have, and in the top one you have two Spaniards facing each other, and then the last three are the Italian, right, facing the Spaniard. So the Italian has to make all that reach to hit the Spaniard, but if the Spaniard takes a step in a circle, the guy will impale himself. A Spaniard is not going to fence on the line because the way the system was created was to be a constant movement. You can expand the circle, contract the circle, and there's more than one circle. There's the fighting circle, and each fencer has his own personal circle. These things are constantly revolving like this.
Right.
So you don't see that in Filipino martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Also, another thing is this: when the people from the Iberian Peninsula started to invade the Philippines, they didn't send the best guys out there. They sent the guys out of prison and all kinds like that, mostly thugs. And now it's fencing.
Sounds like Miami.
Yeah.
Say that again.
In Spain, there existed three different methods of fencing in the 17th century. It was destreza común, or common skill. There was esgrima vulgar, or called vulgar fencing, and then there's la verdadera destreza, which is what you're seeing in that diagram. I was the first person in the world today to reconstruct that. I've been doing that longer than anybody else in the world. And I'm not done yet.
Right. Yeah.
There's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, you're like Joseph. I mean, he's been at this for decades, and he's not done yet with the research and what have you.
There's no end because it's like every time I think I know something, I find something else.
Right.
And that's the beauty of it, because this way I'm always a student.
Yeah.
I'm always learning something new.
Yeah. Well, what did Bruce Lee say about being a master? He called himself a master student.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. You know, and he's not. I think that there are some people in Jeet Kune Do who think, man, this Jeet Kune Do is fantastic. You know, I mean, Bruce Lee himself said what? His quote was, "My Jeet Kune Do is something else," right? So I think there are people who think, oh, okay, well, if Bruce Lee thought that his art was fantastic and I study his art, that's it. That's all I got to do.
No.
They're just scratching the surface.
Yeah.
Right. That's when it starts.
When I learned fencing, I learned the French foil first. I learned French fencing first, and then I learned Italian fencing. The Spanish fencing I reconstructed, right, from reading the treatise. And that's another thing. People, if you're gonna read the treatises, you better have some knowledge of fencing, or you're gonna be out at sea, lost on a raft.
Right.
Because it's very easy. You have to understand fencing theory, and this is what Bruce Lee had that down cold.
Wow.
If he dedicated himself to be a fencer, holy moly, that's all I got to say about that. You know, he was on there. So that getting back to that myth with raping that spotty dagger, you caught it. The language sounds familiar, but it really has nothing. I've gotten into arguments with people this time, with many people, including one of the guys from Black Belt magazine. And he says, "Oh, we found proof of this. If you show me the proof that's empirical, I mean, I want to know it. For real, I will retract every word I said." I haven't seen anything yet.
Right. Yeah. So Joseph, as the JKD guy here, what would you say then is the apparent or the easily seen evidence of what Bruce Lee did to translate fencing theory into what he was doing physically with the empty hands?
I think it showed through the old school boxing that I was talking about. There's a connection. Remember, y'all was asking me about that. You said, and I told you, it's like the JKD. It's like a house. I'm just in different parts of the house, but it's the same. It's the same art. It comes from each other. So when you think I'm out of it, I'm not out of it. I'm in the fencing, but it looks like boxing. Because boxing comes from fencing.
Boxing does come from fencing, because if you look, the boxing ring, it's a square, right? And every boxer, he comes into the arena with his seconds, and he has the seconds. That's what, you know. Seconds are the guys that brought you to the dueling ground to make sure you got there alive, and that you left in as good condition as possible. Right. So let's say if you're going to have a duel with Joseph, you have to come to the field with your backup guys, and he comes with these are two of them, right? You have a doctor. The doctor is the cut man today, and the referee The referee is the president de combat who officiates the entire combat. That comes directly from fencing. In fact, as far as I know, the first heavyweight champion of the world was an Englishman. His name was James Figg. And they fought bare knuckles back in the day in the 17th and 18th century. And he fought until I think he was in his 60s. He was a 6-foot tall Englishman.
Yeah.
In fact, if you read if you want to read a good book that has him in it, it's a book called Schools and Masters of Fence by Egerton Castle. I think you would like that book. It's available, I hope, still. But and if you want to find that information, it's on my website on the bibliography.
Right.
Okay.
I have a whole bibliography there.
Yeah, it's a great website. It's perfectly designed for what you do. I mean, it looks classical, you know.
Can I say something, Master Martinez and Dwight? Like I took these other 2 books, the Costello books, off the shelf.
Yeah.
My instinct said you might want to take that. But I have that book in my library.
There you go. The best book the best book on French fencing, in my opinion, is the book that has those diagrams that I just sent you. The book is called Foil and Saber: A Grammar of Fencing by Louis Rondel. That book is from 1892. The one I sent you the picture. So you could still, I think you could find reprints of that online somewhere, or a PDF of it. It has everything, lessons, everything, the way they were trained, a little bit of the history of fencing in France, but and it's not exactly the way I teach it, but I think it's the closest.
Yeah.
Wow.
The real dueling. So I remember, and Joseph, it might have been you that turned me on to it, and seeing the pictures and maybe even the videos of the guys with the facial scars and what have you. But is there any movies about that stuff?
There is a video on YouTube that you can see of them actually doing it.
Okay.
And that's called the Mensur. MENSUR. Well, they stand face to face, and they have these big basket-hilted swords, and they wear goggles and a neck protector. And the idea is to cut your face open, your head, and they go back and forth. And was done by the fraternities in the German universities, and they're still doing it today.
What?
They're still doing it today. Those weapons were double-edged rapier type blades, and these things are like razors.
Yeah.
In fact, I might even have one in the basement.
But why would that not be outlawed?
Because it's not mortal. It's basically I call it ritual scarification is what I call it.
Okay. Yeah.
The thing is, if you get hit, it bleeds like anything, right? And there's a doctor they'll saw you up there in cold blood. and you're not supposed to flinch.
Right.
If you flinch, you're a coward.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
Joseph, in the collage that you showed one of the screenshots is from the 1967 Long Beach Internationals, right?
Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one.
You know,
that's the fencing application, you would say, right?
That's
a lot of it is there. You know, I was watching that, as a matter of fact, on YouTube earlier today, and they always say Bruce Lee goes so fast, and he's so fast. Yeah, he was fast, but if you watch that, he's not fast. He is very clever, because all martial arts, fencing included, are based on 3 things: timing, distance, and proportion. Timing is when. Distance is from when, and the proportion is the relative size of any technique or action that you take. If something requires a small action and you do a big one, you're wrong. If something requires a big action and you do a small one, you're wrong. Bruce Lee's actions are very compact, very tight, and that gives the impression of blinding speed, but he's not. He knows his distance. When he's in your face this close, it looks like his hands are going like in the blink of an eye. But if you watch that film correctly,
yeah, you'll
see what he's doing. And he's very calm. He puts his lead arm out. That's the sword.
Yeah.
He knows that. See?
Interesting.
So now you have an insight when you look at those videos again.
Right. We see and but I mean, so this year I celebrate 40 years with Dan and Asano. Right? And there's still stuff to understand, to get a deeper understanding of.
There's no end to it.
Right? Exactly. There can't ever be.
That
Right.
can never be because every fencing master that has written a treatise, which is not a how-to book. It's not a manual. People call them manuals. They're not manuals. Those are not how-to books. Those are fencing master's thoughts for his students and his colleagues.
Yeah.
That's why you have to have knowledge to read those books, because there's a lot of stuff that's not in the books that are deliberately left out.
Sounds like the Tao to me.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I would love to see Dan again, because I haven't seen him since his 70th birthday. They brought me in as a surprise. And when he sees me, he comes running and he gives me a big hug. And he touched the guru. He says, "Relax." He's like,
Yeah.
he's one of the most laid back individuals I've ever met. You know?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he's cool. He's cool. So okay. So two things, and we'll wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
One, you've become familiar with the work that Joe has been doing these decades, right? In trying to illuminate some of the mysteries of Jeet Kune.
He's told me about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So I mean, when I brought him on, I made sure people understood that, to me, he's the Jeet Kune. He's the pioneering Jeet Kune historian. What would your message be for JKD people?
Yes.
Based on your background and your understanding then of how your art influenced Bruce Lee, what would your message be for JKD people? And then we'll wrap this up.
Okay, I would just say, do the work. Do the work. Don't be lazy. Don't take shortcuts. There are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
You got to do the work, and you have to trust your teachers. The French have a saying. They say, honor to arms and respect to the masters. And that's what you have to have. If you have that and you have faith in what you're doing, you cannot go wrong.
Right.
You cannot go wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the best way to sum it up. You have to be willing to put in the work. And today, unfortunately, with the fast-paced world that we live in, that's extremely difficult. But I always say this: if someone's truly interested in something, right, they'll get to it. I said, and the best analogy I can make, it was once someone's in love with someone,
right,
that person will climb mountains and cross deserts to get to that person, no matter what.
Yep.
That's the way you have to approach it.
Yep. It's
like you have to, like it's like the air you breathe. You have to have it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
People will say, I don't have the time. And I say to them, well, nobody has time, because time never knocks on your door, right, and goes, here I am. Nobody has time. What do people do? People make time. People find the time and make the time. Nobody has it.
Exactly. You know, I had a kung fu teacher once. I studied other systems of kung fu. My first Chinese martial art was Yin Yao Pai, with Northern Eagle Claw, because the master's nephew was my student.
Mm-hmm.
So I got brought in as a family member. Boy, did I get it! But anyway, and I studied other things, like a little bit of jujitsu and judo stuff. Those things I just tasted it, because I was so busy teaching fencing, I didn't have the time. The thing is, I had to make a choice. What am I going to be? I'm going to be a fencing master. I'm going to be something else, and I made that choice. But I love the Chinese martial arts, and I love any martial art.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if I could, I'd study all of them. But
yeah.
you know, and I wouldn't just dabble at them.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you think about it, right? Even if we just kept ourselves to what we've been told, right, and what we know that Bruce Lee wrote: Wing Chun, boxing, and fencing. But if you go deep into Wing Chun, my God, right? Then you come out of that and you go deep into boxing. My God.
Yeah.
Then you come out of that and you go deep into fence. My God, right?
You know what can I say about Master Martinez?
Mm-hmm.
Maestro Martinez. How long did you study Tai Chi and Qigong?
I studied Tai Chi and Qigong for 5 years every day.
Imagine that, Dwight. Imagine that.
The only time I wasn't at the school was because I was on vacation. But I was there because at that center, the Sifu there used to let me teach fencing after hours. So my fencing classes were held after hours. He says, here's the key, teach your classes, bye, I'm going home. So that went on for 5 years.
Wow.
And then after that, I taught in his brother's school, the Praying Mantis Institute of New York. I used to teach there after hours. So I was for a long time. I was very well known amongst Chinese martial arts circles. But I didn't look. I didn't go looking for it. I just sort of landed in my lap.
Right.
Wow. Yeah. So the fascination never stops. Never stops.
There you go.
I know we didn't have time to get into the central and center line stuff, but we can do that another time.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, Joseph is not going anywhere. Right. Yeah, let's try to do that. I'm running through my schedule in my head. Yeah, we could do that in another few weeks or so. And
I'm looking at my calendar right now.
Yeah, tell me what your
let me see
availability is, because I know you teach on Mondays and Fridays, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so we'd have to do it on a Wednesday like this.
Yeah.
Hey, Dwight.
Yes, sir.
So far, May looks good.
Okay.
Well, we can talk about that more later. Maybe in May.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Joseph, yeah.
Did you have a good time, or did you have a good time?
Hello. I trust you, man. Come on.
Hey, you want me to give you a tease for next time?
Yeah, give a tease.
Okay. All fencing is based on redirection, opposition, and interception.
Yeah.
We forgot that can be applied to all martial arts, and that's also related to center line and central line. I'll leave it at that.
Okay, sounds good to me. Okay, Maestro, how can people get in touch with you?
Oh yeah, I did send you those dueling images, the videos of those people in the real duels. Remember that? I sent it to Joseph. Joseph sent them to you. The videos.
Yeah. Yeah.
You see how conservative those people are? No looking around, no bouncing.
Yes. Right. Which is the same thing Bruce Lee was doing in that sparring demo.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I will say this. I'm not a Chinese martial artist. I don't consider myself that. I'm a fencing master. But I've had nothing but a lot of support from the Chinese martial arts and other martial arts too. But several years ago, my wife and myself were inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame, and we were the first Western martial artists to be that happened. So,
wow!
I forget what year.
Excellent.
I think it was like in the teens sometime. That happened in San Antonio, Texas, and I was shocked. I said, "What am I doing here?" I said, "No,
well, congratulations!
Yeah.
Congratulations!
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. So, Maestro Martinez, your website is the best place to find you.
My website, my contact information is there. Also, I have a YouTube channel with all kinds of videos and demonstrations. We did. If you want to see Spanish rapier and dagger, Spanish rapier and cloak, and things like that, we did a demonstration of bull ring in Spain years ago.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
And the master of the bull ring, he says, "Oh, this is ours."
Okay.
And he said to me, "You want to train to be a bullfighter?" I said, "I'm too old. I'm over 50 years old." He goes, "Nonsense! I'll teach you."
Okay. All right. And Joseph, where can people get in touch with you? Do you have a website yet?
That is coming. Can I say that the fencing, the type that Maestro Martinez is talking about, he has satellites. Kim Mosier is teaching here in West Palm Beach, in northern West Palm Beach, and he's teaching in Green Acres. There's another instructor in Naples, Florida.
Russell Hogue.
And that's another school there. They're all under Master Martinez, and I encourage every Jeet Kune guy, you guys gotta go and just buckle down and just study.
On the West Coast, we have more on the West Coast. We have a master in Seattle. We have a master at Humboldt at Arcata, California. He's the fencing instructor at Humboldt State University, and I have an instructor in LA, and I have, depending on where they are right now, maybe have one in Santa Rosa, California.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gentlemen, it's been an exquisite pleasure for me. And so we'll see what we can do in May and follow up on this.
And you're what, Dwight? You're always leaving? I don't care what they say about you. I still like it. I'm still in your corner.
I appreciate that, my friend. All right, gentlemen, have a great evening, and we'll talk again soon. All right,
You
take
too.
care.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, that was cool, wasn't it? All right, episode 260 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. I'll get all the contact information, and I'll put it into the final edit video. So you guys know the deal. Go ahead, comment. I'm not sure if anybody caught the live stream over on the YouTube, probably because they're not used to us being there on a Wednesday. But thanks for everybody on Facebook who showed up. So make your comments. I'll ask Joseph and Maestro Martinez to check the comments, see if there's anything that they need to reply to. This Friday is Good Friday, so we're going to preempt the Jeet Kune Dialogues, and but then we'll be back into the regular swing of things next Wednesday. I Love Jeet Kune broadcast, and next Friday, I think I'm on with Mick Tully. Yes, right. So you can support the Jeet Kune Dialogues YouTube channel. Just click on the join link, and that's where you'll see all the different membership levels that we have. YouTube.com/@the Jeet Kune Dialogues. You can also support the JKD Rebel by getting a copy of the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1, the raw but edited version. This is available at paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. And last but not least, you can go to jkdrebel.com, click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this, the JKD Notables coffee mug, also available, shirt, t-shirt, long sleeve, short sleeve, sweatshirt, hoodie, all that good stuff. But of course, the best thing you can do is share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Dialogues. And please subscribe to the YouTube channel. They get really excited when my channel grows, and I get excited as well. Okay, so until the next episode, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. You guys enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Talk soon.